The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Breaking Down Security this week. Our second part of our interview with Leanna Garrison and Garrison Yap is just about to begin. This week, we talk about process, how important process can be, sometimes in so much as it's necessary for your job to follow process. Quick story, when I was in the Navy, we had what we called tag-out procedures for maintenance if we were dealing with things like heavy-duty electrical equipment on ships. And there was a playbook and a tag-out procedure, and you had to notify people, and those kinds of things were necessary for making sure that everything was as safe as possible. And we get to that with Leanna and Garrison this week as well. If you're, not keeping track of your security equipment or not following process, your security posture or your stance may be duly affected. So the other thing we're going to talk about is lessons learned. We're going to talk about what lessons learned look like, or what to do after the fact. And also we talk about Eliza Lamb. So there will be some spoilers if you've not watched The Vanishing at Cecil Hotel. It's a documentary about what happened to Eliza Lamb. If you don't want to hear the discussion and you're still wanting, that's on like number 45 on your Netflix list to watch. You might want to stop it at that point or fast forward. But we talk about some of the security failures there, and what it's like to outfit or handle a building that might be historically significant. If any of you've ever worked in a building that Declaration of Independence was signed in, there's obviously different things you have to do to make sure to maintain security, but also to maintain things like the historical value of the building. So, all right. Hope everyone has a great week, and on to the show. Y'all have talked about several incidents, just examples, and I'm sure you've got dozens to mention. Ms. Berlin, when she deals with incident responses, it's of a different nature, but we all do lessons learned. And what does it look like for your teams when you were working there and now when you have to do lessons learned? Do you follow any kind of guidelines for that? I would imagine you hold people blameless until the lessons learned, and then you assign blame, which is usually the best way of doing incident responses. But do you have a guideline or anything that y'all were following when you were doing lessons learned?
There was a guideline, but we didn't call it lessons learned. But I myself, coming from the military background, did ROTC. I'm very big on the lessons learned. When we sit down and we talk about, okay, what went right, what went wrong, it's normally in the form of an incident report. On this day at this time, so-and-so showed up here. Here's what happened. This is what happened. Okay, this is the result. Who was notified? And what documentation is there? Is there a photo? And normally from us on the field operations side, the public safety officers would go ahead and write the incident reports, and they'd give it to the public safety coordinators, who would go ahead and, review that kind of information. They would work in conjunction with our SOC, for any type of video investigation or any other information as far as that. But once we did the incident, about 7 times out of 10, if it's something as far as doors being open. Okay, well, we found the door open. We've documented it now. We have video surveillance. We're going to check to see who didn't close the door, who didn't lock it. If anything was missing, we're going to make sure we shut it. We're going to make sure that we communicate with staff and make sure that door, especially if it's a director's door or some sort of door that's leading to important information or assets, that door is secure. I'm going to let Gary hit that, because Gary can tell you all about that.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, Garrison, let's hear some stuff.
Yeah, it's one of the things with documenting something like that is knowing the area where you are, who's in charge of the area, what kind of sensitive information is in that kind of area. And a lot of people would go into detail with that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is, when we have to secure something or check something to make sure that, no one was in there, nothing was missing, you have to speak to the person that runs that area, if it's a small office or something. And one of the things that I used to do with a lot of people, especially like in my buildings, when they would report something like, oh, I came to my office and this is missing, or I came to my office and I found my door ajar, and I remember locking it the night before when I left. I would always ask them, what did you have any type of sensitive information in there, anything personal, anything related to students or anything like that? Maybe sometimes it would be that responsibility, yes, sometimes it would be no. One of the questions that I would always get is, how can we prevent this from happening, right? And my response to all of them was simply this: do you need to have anybody come in that building into your office at night? No. Okay, well, do yourself a favor. One of the things that you can do to minimize any traffic going in and out of your office area, whether it's a personal office or a work area, right, is in terms of like with the janitorial services. Send an email to the supervisor, tell them, hey, we will put our trash cans outside our office doors. We prefer to have our office doors remain locked. Do not have anybody come in there. If we need to have our offices cleaned, we will submit a work order in, and you can come and clean it in the day when someone is actually there, right? And believe it or not, every time I would suggest that to a division or something like that, people entering offices or anything missing was minimized or did not exist anymore. Right? Because it's simply this. Some people, because we have situations where people are like, oh no, I had my stapler like this, and when I came back, it was in a different direction. Okay, if you have a janitor coming in there to clean your office, they're not going to memorize exactly how you had everything put on your desk and put it back there after they're done dusting. It doesn't mean they took anything. There's no reason for you to be suspicious that something is missing from your office, especially when you cannot tell me that something is gone.
Right.
Okay. So it's just a matter that, okay, they were dusting your desk and they might have moved your phone or something like that, and they didn't put it back at the 90-degree angle that you had it at when you left. All right. So to keep that from happening, don't have anybody come in your office. Right. Another thing that we would do is my supervisor implemented what we call the access request law. Right. And what that is, it was a way to hold people accountable, but it was a way to protect us, right? When we would let people give access to people that did not belong in that area. Someone would come, hey, I need to get in this person's office. Okay, why? What do you need to do in there? Does the person that works in that office know that you're going to be in their office, right? And that one document was something that would allow us to document what time, what was the purpose, who the person was that we were letting in there, and what they were going to do, right? And it's just simple things. It's a checks and balance type of situation, right? And believe it or not, yes, it was annoying to have to fill out extra paperwork, but trust me, at the end of the day, when something happened, right, and we could reflect back on those logs to say, okay, well, at this date, we gave this person access to that person's office so he could do this. It might be OIT, going in there to update a computer, right? It might be one of our people. Maybe somebody from the Locksmith office needs to go in there and work on a lock, right? But it was a way for us to hold people accountable, right, for a secured area or in a sensitive area.
Right. Yeah. And having that physical log as you're, if there's an incident, you can compare that against, oh, okay, I saw a badge, not to go back to my own experience, but you had to badge in, with a badge to get into the building. So you could cross-reference that log with, other logs and go, oh, well, person A logged, badged into that building at that time. Why is that person logging into that building? Okay, so this person said, they left they know their office was locked, and that person had research materials for the COVID vaccine in his office or their office or something like that. So, having that log is yet another layer to be able to verify not only the electronic records, but the personal records, that people have actually had eyes on the events. So that's excellent.
It was one of those things because the campus had thousands of cameras, CCTV, the whole 9 yards. And our investigation was comprehensive to the point where we would work in conjunction with the technology department. We'd run camera footage, providing that there was a camera in the area where the incident may have taken place, right? And we could be able to cross-reference that camera footage, right, along with our investigation to try and eliminate if there was any mischief or if it was a simple misunderstanding, right? Which sometimes that was usually the case. It's a simple miscommunication somewhere, somebody forgot to document something somewhere, and we were able to do our investigation to figure out what really happened.
Right.
I'll never forget having to get that weird phone call. Gary, I think you remember this one time where we got a phone call with the president of the school saying that someone needed to get inside of his office. And they're like, well, here's my ID and I just need to go in there. And I said, I don't care if it's Jesus Christ that came down right now. Until I figure this out, you're not going anywhere. Yeah. And, I called my boss.
We get the inevitable, do you know who I am?
Exactly. We get the exactly. It's a lot of, do you know who I am? I don't really care who you are. I've got a protocol to follow. So guess what? I'm going to vet you. You're going to take your time. We're going to go through this whole chain of communication to make sure that 1, I don't lose my job. 2, I don't know who you are. I need to figure out who you are. 3, I want to make sure that my SOC can get all views of this. While I'm on the phone trying to figure this out, I'm letting them know, hey, I'm under this camera. I'm going in here. I'm going through this door. This is the other camera. I want you to document this whole thing. So if something's not right after we go through all of this, the liability is not on me. I want to make sure that we took all the appropriate precautions that were needed. And because we've never had anything like this happen ever again, we're going to put it now in our SOP to make sure that if somebody else goes through this, they do what's supposed to be done. Because guess what? Do you know who I am? Social engineering. Yeah, we get that all the time.
That's a great one of those things to go into the SOP as a real life example too of why we're doing it this way. Right? Like it's great to loop around and include that stuff in later on.
Yep. Oh yeah, our SOPs were constantly evolving. I remember sometimes I walk into the office in the mornings when Leanna was on a different shift and she'd be there updating her SOPs because something happened that required it to be updated. So our SOPs when we were there, they were constantly being updated to reflect something, right? That an incident that happened a week before, the night before, whatever, right? And it will cause us to have to update the SOPs to have something in writing to say, okay, this is how you're going to handle this situation from here on out.
And they normally get a debrief. That's the other thing, with the lessons learned. Anytime we did a major update of our SOP, if it wasn't our annual or our quarterly SOPs that we normally just did ourselves, because why not? We would bring the incident forth to our officers and actually talk about it in our meetings and be like, listen, this is our case number. I want you to go back and read it, but we're going to talk about it. This is what happened. And we're going to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Whether we have, we've had some folks that have been arrested and they come back on the campus and we're looking for them. Like we literally have photos and we're like, look, we need you to understand this is what happened. And exactly, this is what happened over the weekend. We want to make sure you guys are aware, this is what the officer did. Don't do that. Or this is what the officer did. Please do that, et cetera, and so forth, because a lot of times people will just hear, oh, well, the SOP, first of all, they don't read the SOP. If it's just text on a paper, they normally will not read it. We have to make this whole process of security and security awareness it needs to be community oriented. And that's what we tried our hardest to do. You know, if you don't find a way to make people involved and understand that why behind it, they don't care.
Right. So, I've dealt with, organizations. I worked at a company. It was like you had a badge and you had a key code, and there was physical security controls, like one person through the door at a time, shut the door, next person badges in, whatever. I moved to another company in Austin, Texas. The first, I think, week of work, I got in earlier than anyone else, and there was a person behind me, older gentleman. I go to open the door, I go to shut it, and he's like, he did exactly like, do you know who I am? And I was like, no, I don't know who you are, but I know that you have to badge in, whatever, and president of the company. Thankfully, the facility security officer was right behind me. Her name is Shona. And she was like, Brian, don't worry, I'll handle it. And yeah, do you know who you are is definitely something I've run into more than once. So
we've talked about reply to that. The best reply is like, no, do you know who I am?
Well, that oftentimes didn't really work.
Exactly. Like, oh, yeah. Do you know who I am? No, I don't know who you are. That's why I'm stopping you. You know, you could be anybody. Are you a millionaire? Have you come to give me some money? You know, let's have a conversation. Let's have a chat.
That's right.
They don't get it. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, are you the person with my magical check? Yes. Let's have a whole conversation then. Yes. And that's the thing. Social engineering. People don't get it. You know, whether it's the person that dresses up as the UPS person or someone who dresses up to be a small child or even a student to say, hey, I'm looking for so-and-so. Does this person still work here in this department? Mm-hmm. Has this person been here this week, et cetera, and so forth.
How important is, so we're not shifting gears or anything, but you've mentioned doors, you've mentioned access, not getting access to. You must have some stories where people have, left their offices open. We saw this during the insurrection in the Capitol on the 6th. There were videos of people who'd left their computers unlocked, and physical security violations like that. And everybody's like, oh man, I can't believe they didn't lock their systems. And I'm like, you're fleeing for what is potentially your life. So yeah, I'm going to give you a pass on not locking your computer in this case. What's your relationship like with IT? If hey, I come in this morning, my door's unlocked and my computer was still logged in. What are procedures like when you have to involve folks like, IT or, InfoSec, because, there may have been an information leak, or, they did have secret or secure or, classified information. Some universities work with the government on certain projects that may be considered very sensitive, or, genetic research or something like that. What happens when you have leaks like that? And if it's a policy that you can't talk about, I can understand, because there may be some, escalation procedures, but what does that look like? And how do you get them involved? Or, do they give the same rigor as physical security, or
Yes and no. Yeah, yes and no. And the best thing that I can say to answer that question, and I will hand off to Gary after that, is it really depends on the logistics of the incident. It is a case by case situation, because there are, depending on the type of incident it is, if we have, for example, if there's a rape, if someone reports a rape on campus, there are certain protocols now that have to be followed. The Clery Act comes into play, things like that. So, the police and other appropriate entities will get involved. But Gary, you've been there longer than I have, so I can really let you, extrapolate a little bit more on that.
Right. With regards to any form of sexual misconduct that happened to a student, because thank God for the time that I was there, it never happened on the campus. It was always something that happened off campus. And for us as protective services, our primary job was to be there for documentation purposes only. The police had to take the control of the investigation. Oftentimes, if it happened, it always happened off campus. Like I said, nothing ever really happened on the campus. right? If it happened in another city, then the university, we had a department that would work exclusively with the student with that, and they would coordinate working with the police agency for whatever city that took place in. Our only goal at that point in time is to document the incident based upon whatever information we were provided, and sometimes we weren't given everything because of the sensitivity of whatever happened. And it's something where we had what was called a safety escort service, right? And what that would do from our perspective was, if the student or the individual that was the victim of that crime, for the period of time that they're on the campus, if they felt insecure or uncomfortable while they were on the campus, they could always call us, right? We would send an officer or a supervisor over to the location, and we would give them that safety escort to wherever they were. Like if they wanted it from their residence hall over to a classroom, or from a classroom to a building, whatever it was, as long as it was in the confines of the campus, we would provide that for them so they would feel safe to a certain degree. In terms of any form of compromise from a security, from a technological point of view, we've had very limited situations like that, but that's something where OIT would be the one leading the charge. And again, we would be there from a documentation point of view. If there was something where we could offer some form of advice or suggestion, we would try to do that to the best of our limited ability at that time. But, most of those kind of sensitive situations and incidents, we were primarily there just to document the incident for the university, because the university required documentation for sensitive situations such as this, right? So that was our primary function, right? But if we needed to offer any form of suggestion, then, if it was something that was legitimate, then they would, speak to us or speak to maybe a higher up authority as to what kind of suggestion we made to secure that situation so it wouldn't happen again.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I can understand why you may not want to get involved for evidence reasons. If you were to go in and touch things, or you walk in, you see the computer unlocked, and you lock the screen, you're like, oh, okay, well, you could have destroyed evidence, or there's an audit trail that's created by the computer, or if somebody's you're not there to to make changes, you have to abide by local policy that is probably not set necessarily by your department. So I can understand that. So let me see, we got about 15 minutes left, I think, here. So this is something I hadn't heard of. Miss Berlin had said, "Oh yeah, that was a great documentary," and I believe Leanna had mentioned this to me before the podcast as well, about the vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, and we're talking about some physical security issues here, some real blunders.
Still haven't seen that documentary yet.
You need to watch it.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it yet.
I watched. I read the Wikipedia article. That's more than enough for me. I will give you heads up. The Wikipedia article is quite graphic about how they found her, which is unfortunate.
So is the Netflix documentary, but I'm one of those people that just watch all the murder mysteries and serial killer documentaries that I can. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So Ms. Berlin, this will be your thing for the next 10, 15 minutes, because I did not see it. I read the Wikipedia article, so I feel like I've, get an understanding. Maybe y'all could give us a little background on who Eliza Lamb was and why there was some physical security issues involved there.
Amanda, I'm gonna let you break down the first half of that, because I know you want to. I want to, but I'm like, I know she wants to.
Okay, so the basis of it is there was a missing girl at the Cecil Hotel in near LA, or in LA, and they did end up finding her, but they kind of walked through police department released some video camera footage from the hotel of her like acting weird in an elevator or something, and it, I guess, blew up on the internet. And there were a million people with all of these different ideas on who may have taken her and who may have possibly killed her, and going through like all these rabbit holes and blaming random people. And they did end up finding her, spoiler alert, but yeah, that's like the gist of the story overall. And they cover a handful of security fails in the documentary.
There were no cameras. First and foremost, there's no form of camera surveillance in that place. And I just, when I think about watching that documentary, I think of literally everything that could go wrong. Like, Garrison will probably laugh, but there have been many days where I've walked into the job just frustrated. Like, why is it so hard to close a door? Why is it so hard to just lock it? And all the words, like, I have cried tears. Amanda, I have cried tears. Okay, I've cried tears. So just imagine the look on my face as I'm watching this documentary, because I'm like, okay, spoiler alert for all of y'all that haven't watched it. Too bad, so sad. But you got two entryways, okay? You got the Cecil Hotel, and then you've got the stay at Main that Elisa Lamb's at. 2 entrances. That's great. So the people that are staying at the Cecil Hotel, aka the not so nice version of it, and the stay at Main, aka the really glitzy glamour version of it, they're going through 2 different doors. But guess what? They go on the same elevator. What is the point? What? Why? Who did this? Why?
I mean, so you mean saving money.
And see, that's the thing. We're saving money. And that's a hilarious thing about it. Even though we're talking about Lisa Lamb here, it's the same thing with physical security. It's the same thing with IT. It's the same thing with cybersecurity. No one wants to spend money because they think it's too expensive. But if they would have had the right security protocols in place, that poor girl would have lived,
And I'm assuming you guys do the same thing. Like, pretty much everywhere I go, I check to see where all the security cameras are, right? It's
everywhere,
just, right? Like, all the time.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
All the
and
time.
It's amazing what buildings do and do not have good security, right? I mean, I went to a pawn shop the other day, and their security, like their physical security in pawn shops, is insane most of the time.
It's like imagine looking through a can, like look through a can of Campbell's soup pretty much, and there's your security camera.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all been at hotels during conferences too, where like people just end up on the roof somehow.
Exactly.
Nobody ever knows.
I understand the swimming pool's up there on the roof.
The swimming pool is on the roof.
Oh yeah, the swimming pool is supposed to be on the top floor.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how we find it. Yeah, and I mean, this hotel was no different. I mean,
none whatsoever. And that's the thing, when when Garrison and I, when we went through our training, roof accesses are a thing. In that documentary itself, there's a ladder outside, and it does not make any sense to me why anyone would climb up that ladder to go to, I don't know, the 14th floor.
I mean, I probably would have, to be honest.
I'm not going to say what I want to say.
Remember, kids, don't be like Miss Berlin.
I may have
So not be like Miss Berlin.
I may have made it
I want
to the
what
roof
you
of
have
several
for
hotels.
breakfast.
But yeah.
Nah, man, I want what you have for breakfast. I'm not climbing up the ladder to go to the 14th floor is where they found Miss Lamb. And, it's funny because they talk about an exterior exit door that had an alarm on it, so they say had an alarm on it or didn't have an alarm on it. And we deal with those doors all the time in PhysSec. And let me tell you, as soon as I saw that door, I was like, if that battery's dead, if no one's checking the door, if there's no maintenance company that really knows what they're doing, there's no alarm on that door. That door could be unlocked. Nobody really knows, no cameras, no sense of security. No one knows who is who. There's no actual, real form of asset management, no escalation management. They found the girl in a part of the hotel where she wasn't supposed to be. And she was exhibiting just weird behavior. And we deal with that. We've dealt with that all the time on the campus. We intoxicated kids, suicidal kids, you name it. We've probably dealt with it. Oh God. Right? You name it. Yeah.
You don't just be like, oh, that person seems, like they're going through some stuff. I'm just gonna, turn. No. I don't want to deal with that.
And that's the thing. It's like you're dealing with kids, whether you're dealing with kids or you're dealing with adults. That's the thing about security. People love to say, oh well, it doesn't have anything to do with me, so I'm not going to do anything. But there's always that one person that's normally around. And unfortunately for Elisa Lamb, from what I know, there wasn't that one person that normally is around to say, maybe something's not right. Maybe we should actually see what's going on, and it's the same thing about security. No one wants to worry about it. And they say that it's not their issue. Physical security, situational awareness, all of it comes together. It's really, security, InfoSec, this is really community led. If you actually took the time out to have community based security, especially a building like that for the Cecil Hotel, with the structure of, 3 floors of guests that stay on main and the rest of them are individuals that, many would consider unscrupulous. So many flaws. So many.
It says this, according to Wikipedia, it says the hotel was built in the 1920s. So this might be the case for a lot of folks. You work in buildings that have been retrofitted numerous times. Fire codes change, here in the Seattle area after 1960, you don't have basements because, they were outlawed because of earthquake code. If your office is in a building that is historically, significant and you can't make changes to the environment, and I don't know if this is the case with the university, but or other places, but how do you protect against that stuff and still, appease those kinds of, the Historical Preservation Society, or, like with the Cecil Hotel, if you got a fire escape that goes all the way up to the 14th floor, maybe that's there for a reason back in the 1920s, but maybe it doesn't need to be happening now. How do you reconcile that, or how do you add additional controls into place to make sure that, like, maybe the fire department only has the need to go up the fire escape? Is something as simple as a lock, or, what are we looking at? Like increased camera presence? What would have saved Eliza Lamb here in this case?
Okay. Well, let me let Gary give. Gary, let me let you give your perspective, because I'm going to actually give you a perspective from a construction project management answer. So Gary, you do your thing here.
Project management.
Well,
a little project management.
I know for instance, with working on that campus, right, every building had at least one roof access point, right? Some had multiple, right? But that was also part of our daily responsibilities, because the only real people that would go up to these roof access points were people that needed to do work, like contractors or, the service personnel that we had on the campus. Nobody, and to the best of my knowledge, we never had any situation that a student or a staff member was found on any one of those roofs. We never had anything like that. But that's not to say that we didn't come there the next morning after the day before. We provided access to a contractor to go do service on the roof. And then the next day we come in, oops, somebody forgot to lock the roof access. And that would cause a shitstorm, so to speak, right? So it was, I know for me, I leave Leanna to elaborate more on how her zones were, but for me, that was one of the things that I worked on the morning shift. So if my personnel or myself let somebody on the roof and then our tour was done, it was our responsibility to brief the incoming shift and say, hey, look, we got personnel on the roof. Please make sure that you send an officer to, number one, check to see if they're still up there, because some of these contractors, I mean, it wasn't their fault, you know, but sometimes they would leave and not let us know, hey, look, I'm done for the day. You can go secure the door, you know, and they would innocently leave, right? We may not have gotten an opportunity to go back up there, but we always made it a point to let the next shift know, hey, look, we had contractors on the roof in this building, send an officer to check. Up until when we left, as far as we know, they were still up there. Have an officer check it. If they're done for the day, secure that bad boy. If it has an alarm, arm the alarm back, and then you're good to go, right? So it happened every once in a while, yes, that someone missed the roof access. But like I said, thank God for the time that I was there, I never heard of anybody that wasn't supposed to be up there being called up there, right? It was always, you know, a contractor or service personnel that went up there and they forgot to let us know that, oh, you know, we didn't tell the guys that we were done, or maybe an officer missed it, you know, which is entirely possible, and that officer would have been done.
Right.
See, and here's the thing to answer your question, Brian. When it comes to construction buildings, when it comes to buildings, especially historical buildings, it is a matter of the county and the city, because you have to check with your permitting department to see what allocations can be made to the building based on what was previously said before. You cannot just start hacking away at things at a historical building. Story time really quick. You know, when I was in Chicago in the historical area, my contractor, my GC actually, he is a civil engineer. And he was charged with the task of removing basically a large facet stone that was between two major buildings in the front exterior of the building. If someone opened the door the wrong way and they shut it, it can fall on someone. So they had to stabilize that stone, and they have to stabilize it in a very certain way with very specific material to make sure that they're up to code. I can tell you right now, based on what I've seen in that show, no one cared. There was no real sense of care for security, because it was like, you know, when you go back to that one episode where the manager says, well, it wasn't our fault, and the lock, you know, there was no one else put a lock on the top roof water system. No one else did it, so we didn't do it. You have to be proactive as opposed to reactive. What killed Elisa Lam was the fact that no one took the time to actually review the security of this building. No cameras. Okay, no cameras. There should have never been, at any point in time, if they wanted to use that building, they should have had 2 separate entryways, 2 separate elevators. They should have continued to have everything separate. They didn't have any of that. There was no sense of security, no security guards, no SOC, nothing. There's no badge system, no key in card system, nothing. Basically no form of security controls that I could have ever thought of during my tenure at Nova Southeastern University was ever even thought of at that building. And that's where community and security comes back in, because if you have a historical building like that, okay, you need SMEs in physical security to give their opinion, to meet with the city, to make sure that there are protocols in place to ensure that something like that happened to Elisa Lam never happens again, because that one could have been prevented. That easily been prevented.
Yeah. I find that we only make real changes to either IT systems after a breach or, you know, physical systems. Something major has to happen.
Everything is always after the fact.
Mm-hmm. And we can't do it that way.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like also at that hotel, they had deaths all the time. So they're like,
that's true.
What's a security system going to do?
Wow.
That's true. They did have a lot of people. I still, to this day, that they had a lot of people die out there. And you know what, Amanda, you're right. Because guess what? No one changed anything. No one cared. Nothing changed. People, person after person after person after person. If you guys haven't watched it, go watch it. You know, spoiler alert, a lot of people died, but
I mean, it's still worth watching. Yeah.
It's so worth it. But still, you know, just got to be a little dramatic there. Go watch it if you get the chance. You know, when we have these conversations, y'all, together, that's when it all comes together. Because I can tell you right now, there's plenty of folks in cyber that don't even understand how this correlates to what they're doing now. Guess what?
Right.
Y'all could help make better technology and work with people in physical security. You could have people in PhysSec come over and we could work together. You know, just maybe, just maybe in a perfect world. Maybe.
I've worked with physical security officers and SCIFs, and, you know, making sure all that stuff's secure. It's not an easy thing to do, especially and not just in the defense space, but I mean, you know, it's definitely something that once you've learned, you know, the ins and outs, you learn how to implement it along with, you know, information security as well. So, yeah. So before we go, and I know we're super over time, but I'm very glad we had this discussion. So we've got a lot of companies heading back to work, and some of these companies may not have had employees in the buildings for a year or better. You're a facilities security officer at a company. What would be the first thing that you would want to do if, you know, everybody's post-COVID, everybody's getting vaccinated? Hey, but, you know, CEO says, hey, we're going to have people back in the office in the next a month or 6 weeks. What are some of the first things that you would do as a physical security officer, you know, knowing that that's going to happen and that you haven't really done anything in the last 9 months because everybody's been at home? I'll start with Leanna.
Well, since, you know, if it's an officer being asked the question, you know, their capacity isn't much of anything. So I'll probably escalate this question as far as, you know, from a management perspective, just a little bit more. But if it was me, you know, especially for those who are CISOs and members, you know, of leadership in organizations, the first things I'm going to do, run a clearance check. Run a clearance check. Because guess what? If you're working in a safety sensitive environment, okay, when we worked in the state of Florida, we had to have a level 2 background clearance. So random drug, random alcohol test. If you got a ticket, if you got into an accident, you name it, you had to report it. If people have been out for 9 months, you do not know where these people have been. Run a clearance check to ensure that these people still meet the baseline configuration of what you need for them to be employees at your organization. 9 months is a lot of time. Find out what's going on before anyone goes anywhere, before anyone steps back in. Do a clearance check.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
I'll add to that clearance check. You know, in this time that we're living in right now, a lot of people obviously got let go from their jobs. You'd be surprised how many institutions haven't gone through to remove people that they laid off from areas that they may have had access to. Yeah. Right. So that's another thing I would do. I would cross-reference my current employee status, right, with whatever security certification that they may need to have, right? Just to make sure, hey, you know, Tom and Sally didn't come back. We let them go 3 months after we closed down the building, right? So let's go ahead and get with IT and have these people that no longer work for the company, have their clearances removed, you know? So that's one thing I would do. The second thing I would do, you know, this, you know, maybe minuscule to some people, but I'll have that whole building sanitized. You know, when we all left, when some people left, you know, not a lot of people thought about, hey, you know, let's clean this building out or have a company come through next week and have this building completely sanitized. You know, it always makes sense to do that. You know, I know where I work right now. You know, right now the building is essentially a ghost town. We have several entities inside the building. It's not just my company, but right now we are on a voluntary basis. So if I want to come in tomorrow or Wednesday, I simply call my supervisor and say, hey, look, I'm going to be going into the office on these days, right? When I go in, right, it's company policy right now for us to sanitize our workstations, right? After you're done working for the day, clean it down again, right? Then leave, right? We have our masks on, even if we get up from the desk to go to the printer, right? We have our masks on, right? We clean down the printer, whatever we touch, we clean down, right? At the end of the week, we have a team that comes through and they electrostatic clean the entire office space, right? So, it's a good idea. If you're out of a building for all this time, then it's a good idea for you to go through and have a team come through and clean the surface area down, especially the most frequently touched areas.
That makes sense. Yeah.
You got a point about that. I just want to slip this in. The other good thing about that, Gary, is when they sit down and they're coming back, if you do the clean, that sets the baseline configuration for how the area looks. So when people come back, if something doesn't look right, you know immediately that something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It all comes together.
Yeah.
Yep. And just throw out any refrigerators that are there because the food leftover has been 9 months old. So just burn the refrigerator, flamethrower.
Fermented long enough.
Yeah.
Poor quartermaster.
Right, I don't know. Some of that might still be good.
I don't know. The fruit juice in there may be, fermented. You may be able to have good
juice might become wine.
Yes, exactly. That's
exactly
my kind of thinking.
Nice. Yeah. Cool. All right. So I think we need to go. I'd love to discuss more of this. But we've run out of time. So Leanna, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to talk more about physical security, Locksport? Because I know a lot of InfoSec people like Deviant and my friend Zach enjoy them some Locksport. How would they get a hold of you if they wanted to talk more about all of that?
The easiest way to get a hold of me, I have LinkedIn, and if you type my name into LinkedIn, I come right up, but find me on Twitter. Find me on Twitter. The best laughs are on Twitter. The best stories are on Twitter. There's a huge network of folks of all colors and creeds from all over the world. That's where I hang out. I have Discord, but find me on Twitter first. We can do a one-on-one on Discord later. And then for professional sake, we've got LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Say hi.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay. Garrison, how about yourself? You've had a very interesting career so far. How would people, if they wanted to talk to you about your physical security experiences, would get a hold of you?
Same thing, LinkedIn. Know I used to have a Twitter account somewhere, but I haven't used that.
You do have a Twitter account, and
you do have a Twitter account. I helped you set up that Twitter account.
I have not jumped on that thing in years, man. So I know it's somewhere out there, but I haven't used it in years.
Well, you have another follower. So
you have 7 followers now.
You do.
So you are.
Hey, you're getting up there.
I know, right?
Gary.
Yeah. You've gotten like 35% more because me and Miss Berlin followed you. So
oh my God, make sure you guys follow Gary on Twitter so he can get on Twitter, please.
She always gets on me about me using Twitter, man. But it's like,
I mean,
come on, man.
once you get used to it, I mean, I found my last job on Twitter.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, like it's super helpful.
I don't think you ever get used to it. You learn to filter aggressively.
Yes.
It's a giant disaster.
All the filtering.
Oh my God, it's terrible. But it is also useful.
Oh goodness. Yes. Garrison Y75 is Garrison's tweet handle.
It's kind of like if Walmart had a social network.
Yep. And
half the people were drunk and ragey. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah. And Leanna's is G-Chi.
It's Geechee. It's Geechee Threat.
Geechee Threat. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're familiar with Low Country or anything about that, Gullah Gullah Island, that's probably throwback for y'all, but that's part of where that come from. It's Gullah Geechee Nation. So Geechee, Geechee, Threat.
Yep.
each threat.
Very cool. Yep. Go check out go check out everything Leanna's doing over there. What was the website again? Reparations.tech.
It's Reparations.tech, and that's going to be a project that I'm going to be, that's the project I'm going to be working on to put up all my information. I just recently did a talk with Alyssa Miller and Cover 6 Solutions, and I'll have all that information on there as well. But yeah, come talk to me. Come have a conversation with me. You know, that's what this is all about. We want to make sure that any person that's listening to this podcast knows that, hey, we're open. We want to hear from you, all of us.
Right. Yep. As do I. Yeah. I don't want anybody to be underrepresented. I want them to be represented. So that's, anybody can come on our show and talk, whether you be, Miss Berlin, myself. We take everybody who can come and want to talk about, be passionate about security. Yeah. So you're not helping. Yeah. So,
and if you really don't want one of us to be on the podcast when you come on, I guess you can also ask for that. I don't know.
No, that never happens.
No.
Nope.
Anyways.
Nope. That's right.
Definitely not.
Yep. So you can follow the podcast. We're on Twitter at BrakeSec, BRAKESEC. We're also, you can email us at bds.podcast@gmail.com. We have a Slack community, very active Slack community. It's actually kind of been a little slow, I think. I don't know if it's because we're in the doldrums. We're after the holidays, so it's got to pick up again. But we have a lot of channels on things like OSINT and social engineering, red team, blue team. We have a mental health channel that people, can come and vent. Miss Berlin has one that's far better that she can tell us about in a second here. But if you're interested in joining that, we have a social contract. We're moderated. We don't require, we require people to be professional at most all times. You can, hit us up on our Twitter DM at BrakeSec or, like I said, bds.podcast@gmail.com to get an invite to join us. Thank you to our Patreon supporters. The donations, the tip jar that we get every month from folks helps us with hosting fees, Zoom fees for the Zoom that we're using today, domain hosting and registration, and just time and effort getting a podcast out every week. I do it with my new job still, and going on about weekly podcasts for about the last 7 years. So if you we appreciate everybody who helps out with that, and podcasts will always be free, and we enjoy doing this, and the donations help where they can. We have a TPub store. They got masks there. They're really nice masks. They have t-shirts, mugs, stickers. So if you're fiending for some stickers, haven't been to a conference or something, you can go to BrakeSec.com/store and check out our TPub store. We do need to get some new t-shirts. Miss Berlin's face is just, starting to,
it'll never get old.
It will never get old.
My face on a mask.
That's right. You can, oh, wow.
She said what she said. Yeah. That's energy during International Women's History Month.
That's right. That's right. That's kind of meta, having your face on a mask on someone's face.
What if I wear it though? Like my face is on the mask that I wear.
That's infinite recursion there. You got face on face on face on face.
Like dividing by zero.
I like that.
You could upload a picture of yourself with a mask, with a face on a mask, on a face on a mask.
On a mask, yeah. Just like keep going.
It goes real deep, folks. It goes real deep. Mr. Betcher, he'll be back in the next couple of weeks. He is at Betcher Pwned on Twitter, BOETTCHERPWNED, and go check out log-md.com. That's his tool for doing Windows forensics and logging. If you're interested into that, go check that out. So I think that's it for this week. Leanna, Garrison, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate y'all taking the time to do so, especially since it's after 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern time for all three of you. And sorry that, daylight savings time is what it is, and we've all lost an hour. We got to find it again. Yeah. And thank you all for coming on. And hope we can get you back on soon to talk some more about, Locksport and whatever it is you'd love to come on and talk about, because we love to have people like yourselves passionate about security talking about that. So thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having us, man.
We appreciate you. Both of you guys, thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Before we go, Miss Berlin, tell us all about what you're doing. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I said I'd have you tell us in a second, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna wrap this thing up.
I'm going right.
Yeah.
So with mental health hackers, we are doing a couple things now. It looks like maybe mid-May we're going to do the painting thing. So you can sign up to do like a hacker painting class.
Nice.
And we're going to have so many painting kits sponsored that we can send to people.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool. I'm going to order those soon and have a bunch of stuff at my house that I'm going to have to eventually ship out. And then we just ended up sending, I think, 6 or 7 of our volunteers to the mental health first aid class.
Oh, nice.
So now we have a whole bunch of volunteers that are certified in that.
Okay.
We used to be certified in that. Teehee.
So great, isn't it?
I know, we're saving lives.
Yes, I love that class.
Nice.
And yeah, that's what I'm doing with that. I have this probably won't come out in time, but I have a Wild West Hacking Fest hacking cast thing this week for our tabletop exercises, and then our training in May also with them. And then I think we're doing a workshop in their live conference that's happening in June, which might be the first time I travel. Hopefully.
Nice. Okay.
So it's in Reno.
All right, there's your bingo card. Anyway,
throwing stuff around. Also, I don't live near train tracks anymore, so we can't use that as a bingo.
Oh crap! We're gonna have to fix that. We were doing so well.
Yeah.
So put me down for 5 of those art things. Well, if the InfoSec Education Foundation won't sponsor them, I'll sponsor them out of my own pocket. So feel free to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's the least I can do. So, okay, cool. So how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to talk about any or all of those things?
At Hackers Health on Twitter or at InfoSystir, INFOSYSTIR.
There you go. And Blue Mara is hiring, yeah?
Blue Mara is hiring like freaking crazy. We now have like 7 people on our team. My R&D team is going crazy. They're like, it's amazing to have like crazy smart people work underneath you now. And I'm like, I now feel like a fraud because I'm in charge of like really super smart people.
No. You're managing the talent.
I'm not managing yet. I'm just a lead, but my boss is trying to push me into a management role. So
she's leading the talent.
Yeah,
that's right. Leading the talent.
That's right. There you go.
That's right.
Oof, that's not. That's another conversation.
Understood. Okay. All right. Well, that is it for Breaking Down Security this week. Hope you have a great week. Find the sleep that you lost this day, which is the 14th. By the time this comes on, it'll be 2 weeks later, and you'll be like, I already found it, or I didn't find it at all because it's insomnia o'clock, just be kind to one another. We're seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. Go get your damn vaccines. Wash your hands, you damn nasties. Take care of yourselves because you're the only you have, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Bye.
And we're done.